Today I'm going to talk about the game They've Invaded Pleasantville from TSR in 1981. It's like a mini game, and it comes in these. They have other games like this, like Revolt on Terry's. They come in this plastic packaging, and so in the box it contains, the dice and the other components. Obviously the cover art is a variation of the classic painting American Gothic, so I definitely have to give that high marks. Seems related to the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which, some of these games are like based on like kind of B science fiction movie. I mean, that doesn't seem to be a B movie. It's actually a good movie, and it was made initially in the 50s and then remade, of course, in the 70s. This one seems to be, concept is similar, and seems to be based kind of in the 50s, just by how it's presented. So it's made in the 80s, representing, I think, kind of what they felt things were like in the rural Midwest in the 50s. So let's read verbatim. Something strange is going on in the peaceful Midwestern town of Pleasantville. Of that, Mrs. Milichenko is certain. Close acquaintances of hers have been seen in unaccustomed neighborhoods. Storekeepers, normally punctual and courteous, have turned stony-faced and reclusive overnight. Even Kermit Blotz, the cheerful paperboy, has exchanged his smile for a sullen glower. When he speaks to her at all, his eyes seem oddly blank, as if he were locked into a dream from which he could not awake. Ms. Milichenko's friends shut themselves away, fearing a wave of some new flu strain is responsible for this bizarre behavior. But the practical housewife knows she must venture into the downtown district today if her family is to have a full refrigerator for the holidays. So basically, an alien has landed and is taking over the minds, they say, with a biomechanical mechanism implanted in their brains, of people in the community, and then the good citizens of Pleasantville are trying to figure out what's going on and survive the alien onslaught. So that's well done. And the rule book, go in detail. It's 12 pages. Has various tables in it, which we'll discuss. But it's well done. Additional components. So there's these dice. Definitely product of the time. It's got like these kind of indented numbers, and they're not. The color isn't different than the rest of the dice. So, product of its time. Functional. So these are the counters, and this shows a whole mix of them, and these are the unique ones. So you have Zebulon, who's the alien sub-commander, and he has a combat factor of 10, which is shown here. There's tied up markers. There's some blank markers, but I found it's useful to use one for tracking the turns. I don't show that in play. And then the remainder of the markers indicate 30 unique citizens, and each of these has a starting location, an influence factor, a movement allowance, and a combat factor, and then of course the name. And for each of these unique 30 good citizens, there's two counters. One has basically a blank back, and the other of that person has a star in the back. And if it's a star, it means it's alien influenced. So that's for each of these, it has those two. And then the unique citizens then, or the important citizens, as I mentioned, are the hotel owner, the minister, teller, tailor, fire chief, maitre d', rep shop owner, sheriff, town drunk, who has a low influence factor, relatively low movement allowance, and lowish combat factor, compared to like the sheriff, who has a high movement allowance, high influence factor, and high combat factor. And combat factors indicate, are affected by if they have weapons, etc. And then there's the generic wife, which maybe that's Mrs. Milichenko. I don't know. And then there's plumber, maid, lawyer, doctor, bank president, checkout girl, war veteran, bartender, station attendant, vet, bank guard, SPR market manager, deputy sheriff, welder, teacher, waitress, paperboy, B&G owner, judge, and mayor. So they're simple. It'd be kind of nice if they were multicolored, but interestingly though, actually the cover art and has a lot of influence on how you kind of feel like you're in like a 50s kind of sci-fi movie, even though the counters aren't, don't represent too much as far as visually, but they work. Then there's the map of Pleasantville. Not super elaborate, but functional. So each closed location is, would take a movement point to get into. The only way to get in, so some of these, these are different, buildings, of course, and some of the buildings have, several rooms in them, and then of course you can only enter through the doors, which are indicated by boxes. You can't go through a wall, so it's pretty self-explanatory. So you have the street. You have your barn grill, house 8, machine shop, a couple other houses, sheriff fire department, town hall, house clothing store, VFW, school, houses, tavern, vet's office, gas pumps, general store, bank, clothing store, mall, supermarket, doc's office, houses, lawyer's office, hotel and restaurant, church, graveyard, train station, stock pen. So kind of simply done, but it works. So it's obviously it folds up to fit, in the plastic, and it's a good quality kind of poster material, so it's fine. So that's the components. So go through the rules here. So how to win: the town player wins by either locating the alien headquarters and defeating the alien sub-commander, having half or more of the total influence factors in play under town control at the end of the game, and the game goes for 12 turns. Any townspeople who are dead, tied up, unconscious, or stunned don't count. If the town player doesn't meet that, the alien player wins. So on the counters, there's the starting location, influence factor, movement allowance, and combat factor. Movement, that's a number of spaces that each of these is a unique space that the player can move, of course. There's no terrain adjustments or anything like that. Influence factors, it indicates the relative respect or charisma that the townsperson has. Combat factor, the relative fighting ability, and it indicates like if they have weapons or strength or whatever, but it's the number that captures that. Preparation for play, we'll show setup. We'll get to that. Sequence, so goes, there's 12 turns, and each turn is to say in these phases. Random movement, alien player movement, town player movement, conversion and influence, and combat phase. And then alien takeover and observation. Control, so there's controlled and uncontrolled. A unit or counter can be controlled either by an alien or a townsperson. So alien controlled counters are moved by the alien player and may be used to take over uncontrolled townspeople. Town control, town player may move these counters. Use them for conversation, influence, interrogation. Town control is gained by influencing an uncontrolled townsperson, or by removing the implant from an alien controlled counter. Uncontrolled counters are controlled by either. They're moved in only in the random movement or alien movement phases. And they may also be skeptical and wary. Skeptical has tried to be influenced but failed. They'll be hard to influence. Wary has observed an alien takeover, and they'll be easier to influence. Movement, just according to movement allowance, and it's just the number of spaces they can move. Stacking, each player can stack up to 3 or of his or her control quantity in any one space. And up to 3 uncontrolled, so you can have a total of 9. 3 alien controlled, 3 town controlled, and 3 uncontrolled in a given space. Doors are, obviously that's how you enter and leave a building. There's some areas that you have no, obviously the roads and green space don't have barriers, but also of the kind of building type things have these dotted, and that indicates there's no barriers. Like that'd be in the stock pen and the graveyard and gas pumps. Random movement is checked 4 times beginning of each turn, therefore a maximum 4 pieces can be moved randomly each turn. For each check, the alien player rolls 2 dice, rolls dice twice to determine townspeople will move using the townsperson table, which is here. So you roll the 2 dice to figure out which one will move. And then the town player rolls the dice twice and consults the target building table to determine the building that townsperson will move towards. So, and that's from this table. Again, roll 2 dice. Random movement applies to one specific turn only and doesn't carry over. So townsperson designated by a dice roll goes twice his movement allowance towards the target building. Shortest path. If the counter enters the building, it stops and enters. Several short distances available, then you roll random to see which one. Only uncontrolled townspeople are subject to random movement. The player may choose not to have counters. He or she controls randomly move to desired. So if you randomly figure out roll one where the someone controls it, they can choose not to move it randomly. Of course, so they can decide not to move the control ones, but the alien player, may consider that if they keep one from moving, then the townsperson will know that they're alien controlled, for instance. A townsperson may not be moved randomly twice in the same turn. Also, so if you find one, then you need to re-roll. All townspeople who tied up, conscious or dead, cannot be moved randomly. But the die roll does count as one of the 4 rolls. So. If the townsperson is already in target building, counter does not move, and the die roll does count. Alien player movement. During the movement phase, the alien player may move up to 5 townsperson counters. However, these may not be controlled by a town player, wary, tied up, unconscious, or stunned. In fact, the alien player is limited to moving up to 5 counters that are either alien controlled, skeptical, or totally uncontrolled. So it's interesting, they can move to uncontrolled ones. Such counters may be moved in the alien movement phase, even if they were moved randomly. This rule allows the alien player to keep the town player guessing which counters are alien controlled and which are not. Okay. Of course, the alien player is not required to move any pieces at all if so desired. Any counters, including town-controlled pieces, have no effect on alien movement. Town player movement. During his or her movement phase, town player may move any town person that is controlled by town player. They may not move uncontrolled townspeople, uncontrolled townspeople, or townspeople that are tied up, unconscious, or stunned. An alien-controlled counter space may alter for prevent the movement of one town-controlled counter in that space. If a stack town-controlled counter starts its movement phase in a space containing one or more alien-controlled counters, each alien-controlled counter may force one town-controlled counter to remain in that space. Also, each alien-controlled counter could have the movement of a town-controlled counter moving into that space. Where there's more than one town-controlled counter to choose from, the alien player may choose which counters do not move. Decision whether or not to stop town-controlled counter is made by the alien player as needed. Conversation influence. Conversation is how the town player discovers the townsperson is alien controlled. So in this phase, they can talk to one suspected town person. 2 counters must be in the same space to have a conversation. To have a conversation, the town player tells the alien player which counters are having the conversation, rolls 2 dice, and roll 9 or better, including modifiers. The town player may turn the suspected counter over to see if it is alien controlled. Townsperson may be talked to more than once a turn if there is more than one town control player in that space. For each town control piece only makes 1 attempt. These are modifiers for that 9 or above. So you look at the influence factor of the suspected townsperson. It's interesting that it's a suspected one, not the talking one. And then you add to the die roll. The town player must try to influence uncontrolled townsperson counters in this phase. Influence trying to convince other townspeople that there's an alien plot. This is how the town player gains control of additional. Town player may only try to influence other townspeople, same space. Each town controlled counter may only try to influence 1 other counter per turn. To influence in the counter, the town player compares the influence factor of the town controlled counter to the influence factor of the other townsperson. This comparison gives an odds ratio. An example it gives that the minister has got an influence factor of 20, tries to super manager 10, ratio is 20 to 10, simplified to 2 to 1. So they'd go to the 2 to 1 ratio. When a stack of uncontrolled pieces, you can add all the influence factors together. Okay. So in the influence table, which is shown here, and then you roll 2 dice, no effect. The townsperson did not believe the attempt to convince him or her. And that townsperson is now skeptical. And you keep track of that on a note paper. So there's a little bit of note taking during this one. If To influence is made again, the town player must subtract 1 from the dice roll. Okay, and it's not cumulative. So the counter. So if it's convinced the counter is town controlled, it will move and function as a town controlled piece. And then modifiers to the influence attempt. If they're skeptical, wary, or as an implant as evidence, you do -1 for skeptical, +1 for wary, +1 for implant. So alien-controlled townspeople. Townsperson alien-controlled cannot be influenced by a town player. However, the town player might try to influence an alien-controlled counter, not knowing it to be under alien control. So if they try to influence a counter that they don't know is alien-controlled, and it is, if you get a convinced roll, the alien player must reveal that it's alien-controlled, and the attempt fails. If no effect is rolled, the alien player does not reveal anything. So you get some advantage of learning about what's controlled or not. In combat involving alien-controlled counters upon which influence was made, resolved in a 1-column shift to the combat results table in favor of the alien player. So look at that in combat. The shift occurs whether the town player discovered the alien counter's true identity, whether or not they discovered it before combat. In combat, all combats are all resolved in this phase. Combat only takes place between counters in the same space. Combat is voluntary. Neither player is forced to start combat. So it only happens if at least one player wants to do it. Either player may start combat as desired. Combat free space resolves separately individually. Combat in one space doesn't affect another area. Each counter can only do 1 combat per turn. Only alien or town control counters that are not tied up and conscious stun may start a combat in combat phase. Uncontrolled townspeople will not take part in combat unless attacked. Town player attacks one or more uncontrolled counters, thinking that be alien controlled. The alien player reveals their uncontrolled state. The result is automatically attacker wins for a town's player, regardless of the number of uncontrolled townspeople. Each defeated townsperson must roll effects of being defeated. The alien player is not allowed to attack uncontrolled townspersons, except those who have observed an alien takeover. Combat procedure, combat factors, counters involved compared to one another, arriving at a plus differential for the players. Counters the player. Greatest number of combat factors is always called the attacker, regardless of the situation. The other player is the defender. Difference in combat factors determines which column in the combat results table, which is here. So that's the difference. The die roll. So you have attacker wins, defender wins, attacker flees, defender flees. If either player controls more than 1 townsperson space, then all combat factors each player must be told together and then compared. For example, if one space alien controls lawyer the drunk town player, tells in combat calculated 6 + 8 against 8. Maximum of 3 counters per player may involve in combat. So the results of combat then are, attacker wins, defender wins, attacker flees, defender flees. Attacker flees, defender flees. Each must flee using a random movement. Roll for the ability counter. And then move at double the spaces. Then the town loss table. 2 to 4, it's killed, removed from play. 5 to 6, knocked out. Flip it over, it's unconscious. After the combat phase, next turn, it's flipped back over. But it's then stunned and treated as stunned for 1 turn. Stun the counter must be retreated 1 space in any direction. by the town player. To the end of the combat phase, the counter may not be moved by either player. Combat phase next turn, the piece reverts to full control of the town player if it's been taken over by the end player, and if it was originally controlled by the town player. Post combat for the town player only. After winning combat, may choose to do any of the following actions. May tie up. The town control cards may always be tied up. The town control cards may always tie up, knocked out, or surrendering alien control counters. Place a tie up marker. Each alien counter can be tied up. Tied up townspeople can be ignored for stacking. If it's tied up, may not move, attack, and be attacked until freed. It's freed if front of the counter is in that space and wishes to free it. Interrogation. Any conscious defeated alien control counter may be interrogated. Interrogation consists of choosing any 4 spaces on the map board and asking if any of these spaces is the location in headquarters. If the town player guesses the correct space, the alien player must say yes. Only 4 choices may be made per interrogation, and each alien control card may only be interrogated once. It's revealed. If the location is revealed, the alien subcommander counter is placed on the board in that space. Implant removal. Townspeople taken over by the aliens by means of biomedical implant. So this is basically town player may remove the implant from defeated alien controlled town person. It's breaking the control. So to attempt the removal, you roll 2 dice and consult the implant removal table. 2 to 3 explodes. Victim townsperson tried to remove it or killed. Removed. 4 to 6 implant is too tightly attached, cannot be removed. B may begin another attack next turn. Implant is removed. Disintegrates and cannot be used as evidence. Limit 12 is removed intact, and evidence of aliens is obtained. So if it's removed intact, it should be noted on paper, which will carry it around. Evidence led +1 to influence roll. So only alien controlled counters may be interrogated as to interrogate before attempting to remove an implant. Alien take over observation. So during this phase, the alien player may take over controlled townspeople, bringing them under alien control. It's handled secretly, so the townsperson doesn't know. So at the beginning of the phase, the alien player may remove from the map any group of 2 counters in the same space, neither of which is controlled by the town's player. An alien player should take these counters behind the dividing screen outside the town's player. If one or two of the 2 counters is alien controlled and the other is uncontrolled, the alien player may replace the uncontrolled counter with a duplicate. The alien control counter. If neither are alien controlled, the alien can pretend to exchange them. The alien player then returns the counters to the original space on the map board. Example of a takeover. So as an example, I'll just show some in play. Restrictions of takeover. Takeover can occur in any space on the board. One of the 2 counters removed must already be alien controlled, or takeover is not possible. Alien control may only take over 1 townsperson per turn. An alien control counter may take only 1 per turn. If there's more than 1 alien controlled counter, each alien controlled counter may take over an uncontrolled counter. An uncontrolled townsperson who has successfully observed an alien takeover is not subject to takeover. There's a chance that a nearby townsperson will observe the detect. If one occurs, anytime the alien moves counters to the map board during takeover, the observation table gives a number that must be rolled a die for townsperson to successfully observe. Effective observation, successful, towns player may flip over one of the observed counters, see if it is alien controlled. If once discovered, the observing townsperson is currently uncontrolled, the counter's name should be recorded along the fact take over. The counter is still controlled, but worry, the town player who tries to influence worry will gain a +1 on the influence result. In addition, the town's person is now summoned alert to a takeover attempt. This counter must be attacked or defeated. Combat before the alien player can move or try to take over again. Restrictions: observation. Observation cannot take place more than 3 places away. Observation will be blocked by corners and walls. Straight lines should connect the observers and need a line of sight. Alien controlled townspeople do not observe alien takeovers. Townsplayer tries to observe, and undiscovered alien succeeds. The alien player must tell the townsperson observed nothing, because the counter is actually an alien control. And then the implant control table and the observation table, where shows the location of the removed places, location observer, and the need for successful observation. So that's the rules, and then we'll get into setup and play. Okay, well, I'll show a setup here. So the first thing is to have the alien player secretly choose where the alien subcommander headquarters is. And for this game, you have to keep note sheets, and I'm going to keep a couple of sheets here. Obviously, since it's a 2-player game, the 2 players would hide each other notes from each other, but since I'm just attempting to do it myself, I'll show it here. Aliens and townspeople. So the aliens, the headquarters will be in House 2, which is right here. Second, the town player rolls the dice to determine which townsperson begins with under his or her control. So I got 1 for the bank president. Then the alien player secretly rolls the dice twice on the townsperson table to see which townsperson begins the game under alien control. A 4 and a 5 for the bartender, so the bartender is under control. And then you basically put all the counters on the board where it's indicated by their location marker, and you can't have multiple counters on one area. And then you have the freedom to within a building that has several areas to put it where you want in there. So the plumber, the repair shop owner, and welder all start in the machine shop area here. Put them there. In the bar and grill, there's the bar and grill owner and the waitress. Train station, there's a war veteran. In the sheriff and fire department, there's the sheriff, deputy sheriff, fire chief. Town hall, there's a judge. Hotel and restaurant, maid, hotel owner, maitre d', church minister, of course. And in this house is the paper boy. The tailor is in the clothing store, of course. The teacher is in the school. Put them there. So for each of these, there's the marker, and so you only put on the board the ones that don't have the star in the back. So in the bank, there's the bank guard, bank president, teller, doc's office, doctor, lawyer's office, lawyer, of course. And then there's the wife in house A. In the tavern, of course, you have the infamous town drunk and the bartender, who is probably not infamous, and the vet's office, you have the vet. And then in the general store, the mayor happens to be there, and you have the station attendant in the gas pump. In the supermarket, you have the supermarket manager and the checkout girl. So you place those, and then if you have 2 players, the townsperson player retreats and doesn't look for a bit, and you put the control marker indicator for the alien controlled. And so I have That's the only alien controlled one, is the bartender right now. All the rest, aren't controlled. So he's on the board, and then the alien would, take these, and these would be available. Zebulon is, placed here for now. The alien sub-commander. And for the turn marker, there's 12 turns, and I'm just going to use a blank marker and progress that along these to indicate the turns. I think that's a handy thing to do. So let's set up. Let's go through a turn of play here and kind of show how it goes. So current situation, I've completed turn 4, about to start turn 5. The townsperson has been able to, from influencing he currently has under his control, the bank president, the teller, so we're here, the bank guard is up here. He conversed with the judge, but he wasn't able to influence him. So, and the hotel owner is also under control right here. So under alien control is the bartender, the vet, the station attendant, the town drunk, the teacher, and the war veteran. Here. So I'll go through it turn here. First of all, we do the random movement. So we check 4 times. The townsperson, 54. It's the wife, 24. Going to the target building table, it's VFW. And so her movement is 4, so she'll go 2 times that 8. She's actually in the VFW. Now if she was alien or townsperson controlled, they'd have the option of not moving her basically. But they might want them to move so that, particularly the alien may want them to move randomly anyway to kind of throw off the townsperson that they're under control. Okay, next, town drunk. He's actually under alien control, but actually the alien's not going to let them know he's under control, so they're going to do random movement. House 1. And he can only move 3, but doubles that. 44. Taylor. He's not under control. He's going to 31. Sheriff and Fire Department. He's over here. So he can move 8. Okay. And one more. 55. The welder. VFW. There you go. So that's the random movement. And then the alien player movement. So the alien player may move up to 5 town-person counters, but they may not be controlled by the town player, wary, tied up, unconscious, or stunned. Yeah, I've been doing combat, so there aren't any that are wary, unconscious, or stunned. So it can move either alien controlled, skeptical, or totally uncontrolled. Okay. So the idea is to move them to where either throw off the townsperson about who's alien, or move them just about where I can try to control them. So first my control ones. So the vet, I think, wants to go down here. You can go 5. I'll try to get close though. And just to kind of make it a little bit confusing for them, I'll move the town drunk. And then I'll move under control of the station attendant. I like him where he is because he's going to try to get the mayor, so he's going to stay there. So we got two more. Since I moved the town drunk some off, I think I can stick with the ones I have under control now. So I'll do the teachers. There's a lot going on here, so they'll go down here and here by the judge and the bank president. And the war veteran can move 4 and go over here by the B&G owner. Okay. Then the town player movement. So they can move anyone. They're controlled by the town player that are tied up unconscious or stunned. So he's got the bank president. Okay, he's not sure what's going on here, so he's going to try to influence smart people. He's going to go down to the maitre d'. The teller is skeptical of the vet because that was moved, so they're going to go up here. The bank guard will go up by the bartender. Try to influence him. Not knowing that one's controlled by the alien right now. Judge will stay there. Hotel owner will go up by the lawyer. Conversation and influence. Conversation, they need a roll of 9 or better of the modifiers, which according to this, you modify by the influence factor of the selected townsperson. So first of all, and you have to be in the same space. So look at the bank president with a maitre d'. Maitre d is 9, so it gets a +1. No, he wasn't able to see. Okay, and then look next to where I have a spot there. The teller is with the vet, and the vet influence factor is 13, so it gets +2. So 8 + 2, 10. So he's able to see if it is, he discovers that, or he or she discovers that it is influenced. So it's good to know. Bank guard is going to check the bartender, and the bartender 11 + 2, 8 again, so 10 total. Oh, another discovery. Okay. Judge with teacher. Six, and the teacher's influence factor is 17. Which is 6 + 3, so actually a lot of discoveries there made by the mayor. I think probably the reason it's the suspect townsperson that has a modifier is that if they're controlled, that means there's a bigger difference between them being kind of, it's obvious that they're like kind of automated versus, charismatic. So maybe that's why there's a modifier there. There's a lot of discoveries in the hotel owner. He's the lawyer. 8, and let's see, they have 11 as well, so they get a +2. So a lot of discoveries made. Turns out that one's not influenced. So, that one is not controlled. So the Town player only tries to influence uncontrolled townspersons, not alien controlled. So we look at the influence table. So each of those, there's not many that it shares a space with that aren't. But the bank president, again, going down the list of the townspeople I control here, that share a spot with an uncontrolled. Bank president to Maynard D. Look at the ratio, and it's 19 to 9, so basically 2 to 1. Roll dice. 9, and on 2 to 1, and has no effects he's controlled, so yes, they are able to control them. So I'll mark that on the list. So to indicate that, it's good. And then the teller is alien controlled, so we can't influence them. Bank guard, alien controlled, can't influence them. Judge, his powers, alien controlled, can't influence them. Hotel owner, and try to influence them. And so it's 11-11, so it's 1 to 1. They roll a 7, and on a 1 to 1, they exactly need a 7 or better, so they do influence them. So that's good. So just indicate it here again. Okay. Okay, so that's the last one there. So that's the conversation and influence, and then we get to combat phase. So now either one or both can attack, but if one alien or controlled townsperson initiates, then the battle happens. So we're going to do a battle here. It's the teller versus the vet. So they both have a combat factor of 6, so it's 1 to 1. So we'll say that the teller is the attacker since he initiated, of course. So let's roll dice. 65. The attacker wins. So the teller wins. And you do the alien loss table. 8. So the interrogation, the townsperson, I guess, 4 spots, and if one of them is headquarters, then the alien has to tell me. So I'll guess machine shop, hotel and restaurant, general store, and law office. But it turns out none of those are, so I indicated that the vet is alien controlled and was interrogated. I can't interrogate him again. That'll indicate that where the headquarters isn't. So is the teller. And now let's look at the bank guard. So the battle there then is and either can initiate. For this case, I'll say that the bank teller is initiating it because the alien wants to do it. 33. Oh, 6. Sorry. DF. Defender flees. So then it goes at like a random movement. Choose the building and it runs there. So we'll choose the building. 51. House 5. So the bank card lost. Okay. And I should make a note of the ones that I learned are alien controlled too. And then the judge will attack the teacher. So teacher surprisingly is a 17 and judge has 11, so it's a little bit of rounding, but it's about 1 to 1. Round to 1 to 1. So the judge is the attacker. 5. Defender wins. So that means there's a town loss. Then since he's the town, so go to town loss table. 7. Stunned. Counter must be treated one space by a town player till the end the counter be moved. Be influenced, be taken over. Okay, so he retreats and we turn it over to indicate it's stunned. Lastly, the hotel owner. The hotel owner will go against the lawyer. Because the town person suspects the lawyer. He doesn't have any evidence, but he suspects that the lawyer is alien controlled, but it turns out that it's not. And because of that, the townsperson automatically wins, although it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory. So, and then you automatically go to the town loss table. Since it automatically loss. 6, knocked out. So it's knocked out for a turn. Okay. Then let's see if there's any other battles we can do. Those are ones that are initiated by they're spaces where either a townsperson was with the alien or townsperson attacked another one that he thought was an alien. Then go to the alien, see if there's other spots. So in this spot, station attendant mayor. So he's going to. So he can either. He's not going to do any attacking. He's going to do. Controlling. So we're going to stop the combat phase, and then we'll do the alien takeover and observation. So the alien may take over uncontrolled townspeople. So the alien player may remove from the map any group of 2 counters in the same space, neither of which are controlled by a towns player. He's going to take. He wants to take this one over, but it turns out the teller is controlled by a townsperson, so we can't do that one. The station attendant. So we can take these off. Or the mayor. The mayor isn't controlled, so he takes. So they're all controlled now. And then we see if there's an observation of that. So, because if there's units within 3, there's a chance that they'll be observed. So, if the pieces are inside the building and the observer's outside, there's no observation possible. If the if the location is outdoors and the observer is, I guess it can be inside the building, because I guess there's windows. 1 and 2. So these are both 2 away. So I'll roll the dice. Roll the dice. 5. No. 6. No. So neither of them observed that happening. Although the townsperson wants to indicate that maybe the station attendant and mayor are controlled. Okay, other ones. And then the war veteran is on a spot with B and G. So I can take that one off and also convert that, or influence, control them. So they're controlled now. Get that. He's going to take, just to kind of throw off the townsperson, neither the welder or wife are controlled by anybody. He's going to take those off the board and act like he's switching them off, but he's actually not. He or she is actually not. But then the townsperson is suspecting them. That's it. That's the end of the turn. So that's They've Invaded Pleasantville by TSR in 1981. It's a mini game that comes in like this plastic kind of pocket thing. Something unique than from mini games. It does include dice, so that's a plus. A lot of mini games don't, but just in that plastic container can. The components are simple. Maybe I think probably too simple. The strategy is great, so there's a big disconnect between the simplicity of the components and how interesting the gameplay is. This would be a much better game, obviously, even if they upgrade the components, it'd be a much better game, because that's a big important part of the game for me. But it's definitely a unique game, and it's loosely tied to movies. Not, it doesn't say it's tied to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but it's kind of similar to that. And I wish it could be played solo, but since it has hidden movement, you really can't do it solitaire. But it's unique, and because of that, I'll give it a 7. And it's a fun game. I wish the components were a little bit better, but I recommend it. It's They've Invaded Pleasantville by TSR in 1981. Thanks for your time.